Hello and welcome to this Cybrox. It's your Rangers podcast. It is Scott Patterson joining you for another edition of My Rangers 11. You'll remember a couple of weeks ago we were joined by Crawford Hume, who gave us his own special selection of Rangers 11. We'll run through it in a second. Before we get into that, the lamb to the slaughter tonight, if you like, is Craig Dennett, my fellow pod host. Hi Craig, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Got a feeling I should have put more effort into this than I actually have, but we'll get through it.
Did you? And so when you were pulling together the bodies, and we'll obviously get into the mechanics of it shortly, but did you find it harder or easier to do than you felt it was going to be?
Probably a bit easier, actually, to be fair. I've had a lot of the guys are a wee bit older than me, so they've got the whole 9 in a row era to go through. Whereas my first game was actually February 96. So right, okay. It was more towards the end of the 9 in a row time. Missed a lot of guys like Mark Haitley and stuff like that in the team. So I guess it was a wee bit easier for me. And obviously the last, 10 years, there's been a lot of dross in there that I could just cut out quite quickly. So a wee bit easier than I thought, but I'm sure I might even change my mind during the show. So you never know.
So before we get into your team, Craig, we'll run through what Crawford went with his selection. So he played a sort of a 4 and then a diamond and then a 2 up top. So he went with Andy Gorham goals, a back 4 of James Tavernier, Richard Gough, who he named as his captain right at the end, Craig Moore and Davy Robertson in there. He had Barry Ferguson sitting ahead of that, Paul Gascoigne and Jörg Albertson there in the midfield. Laudrup with a free role to do as he pleased and could do to whoever he wanted, whatever he wanted. And up front was McCoist and Haitley. A really decent select, I have to say. I think in comparison to my selection, there was actually about 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there was 6 or so that was in my selection as well that I had done. What feels like ages ago now. I loathe to say that we'll probably be asked to do that again, myself and Mr. McIntyre. So I'm sure he'll be watching and listening. Okay, so listen, we'll get straight into it. That was Crawford's. The night is yours. Craig, take us away. Who's your goalkeeper?
Excellent. So I've kind of gone for I see Crawford's gone for a 4-3-1-2 kind of formation there.
Yeah.
I've gone straight 4-4-2. I've absolutely no idea why I've gone straight 4-4-2. Just standard Football Manager. That's what came to mind, and off we go, kind of thing. So I've gone straight 4-4-2. As I said, first match was for February 96. So it's basically from that point onwards. I think the criteria you guys put to me was I had to have seen them in person.
Absolutely right.
So it took a lot of guys who I imagine will be in a lot of other people's teams out of the equation for me. Getting my excuses in early here. So goalkeeper, I've gone for Alan McGregor. I do realise I've slated him for a lot of the last year.
I don't want to say a thing.
I do realise I've slated him for a lot of the last year, but I've gone for Alan McGregor. He's been a mainstay for most of my Rangers watching career, to be fair. If we call it a career, I don't know what you could call it, like Rangers watching life, let's call it.
Yes, indeed.
So I went gone for Alan McGregor. I've gone for Alan McGregor. I think he was so pivotal during the time when I first got my season ticket, which was kind of around 2004 to 2012. First had season ticket before I went to uni. So he was so pivotal in that time. You look back at so many saves and so many important moments that he's given us over the years. You look back at, that Werder Bremen save alone would be enough to probably get him quite high up in this list. And I don't think anyone's ever argued about his shot stopping ability. He's got better with the ball at his feet over the years. Still a bit heart and mouth at times. And a bit wayward, but he's got better with the ball at his feet. It's just been the last year. The only reason he's been criticised, really, in my eyes, is because he doesn't come for crosses anymore. Which, actually, looking back on it, I'm not sure how often he actually did come for them anyway. But I've chosen him as my goalkeeper.
So who did you choose him ahead of?
So for me, there was only really 2 others that stuck out over that time. There was a lot in there that you remember, but they never really played very much. So you guys like we know Charbonnier, Theo Snelders, Ante Niemi, who was a class keeper, but we never really saw him that much at Rangers. Ronald Vaterus, again, decent, but he wasn't
great with the ball at his
really.
feet. Yeah. Superb with the ball at his feet, wasn't he? Varus, goodness me, he could put it for miles.
And then you look at guys like Neil Alexander, really consistent, did well, and when he was asked to be brought in, but he wasn't really at that extra step up level. Yeah. And then you got a guy like Wes Foderingham who was decent for when he was here, but it was never really a standout either. So my three were Alan McGregor, Stefan Kos, and Andy Gorham. I'm using I was born too late caveat for Andy Gorham. He kind of left Rangers a year after I started going. When I was 4 years old. So the amount I actually remember about seeing Andy Gorham is not a great deal. I actually remember more about him being at Manchester United for some reason than I do at Rangers, which is. But I suppose this whole process, when I was putting the team together, it's actually quite hard because you've seen so many videos and you've watched so many highlights of people, and and you're like, actually, do I remember that in person, or is it just because I've watched all those videos that I've
watched on Sports Scene?
Yeah. So Andy Gorham was actually third for me.
Right.
I hope my caveat saves me on that one, but Andy Gorham was actually third for me, and Stefan Kos was second. I love Stefan Kos. I thought great
goalkeeper.
Yeah, and I thought I thought it was really cool at that age. I was 6 or 7, coming from Dortmund, having won the Champions League and just coming to play at Rangers, and he was so good for us, and absolutely loved it. But I thought, Al McGregor, number one for me.
Brilliant. So McGregor is your goalkeeper, mate. I don't think. Well, you know my take on McGregor, so there's no danger I'm disagreeing with that. Funnily enough, my top three, if I remember right, was Chris Woods, who was way before your time, Gorham as well, and McGregor. And I, similar to yourself, I kind of plumped for McGregor. I believe he's the best we've ever seen as a goalkeeper, and I can hear people going bananas in the background. Okay, Craig, take us away. Right to left across your back line, go for it.
So right to left, right back, gone James Tavernier. I've been a big proponent of James Tavernier's qualities over the last few years. I've never quite understood the stick he gets. I get that he's improved a lot defensively over the years, but I think he's been absolutely tremendous, and last season just cemented that for me, to be honest, in that European run. And he's a real captain. I've not decided on my captain for this team yet, but he's definitely in contention for that. But he's a real leader now within our team, and his contribution to us over the last 5-6 years, however long he's been here, has been tremendous. I'll go through them and then we can come back to
carry on.
Other ones considered and stuff like that. So actually my centre half pairing matches Crawford. So Richard Gough and Craig Moore at centre half. Actually I found centre half easier to do than most other positions, I think. I don't think there was that many that have really stood out in my time watching Rangers that have been of the highest quality. But I think those two are definitely up there. And then left back, I've gone Sasa Papac, and that's a pure personal preference.
Okay. Because you play left back, of course.
Because I play left back, or tried to play left back.
Model your career on him.
Yeah, don't really go over the halfway line if I don't have to.
Solid 7 each week.
Just defensively solid, but we don't really go all that running up and crossing into the box kind of stuff. So I've gone Sasa Papac, and I absolutely love him. I can't even describe why I love him, or I can't even remember why I love him so much, but I absolutely do.
I think the thing with Papac, and I think everyone, do you know what I mean? We know Ian Crocker used to often refer to him as being as one of Le Guin's signings, the one that sort of hung around. I actually think he was quite a decent defender. I mean, if you remember right, I'm almost certain that he came in as a left-sided centre half, maybe with the intention of playing in a back three as opposed to playing left back. But he really slotted into left back perfectly for Rangers when he was there, and they made that position his own for a good few years. As far as your centre halves, well, listen, I picked the same two as you. I think one is an absolute icon. To refer to my Rangers ranking, of course. Richard Gough is someone that every Rangers captain should be looking at as a benchmark to what they want to be, where they want to go, how they want to conduct themselves. He is he is the man. He's the top poppy as far as I'm concerned. Craig Moore was just a really, really good defender. I think he was, you hear a lot about defenders now being good with the ball at their feet, and if they're a fullback, they're good at going forward and things like that. He was a really, really good defender. Hard defender, fair defender, and certainly someone you wouldn't have wanted to come up against. Tav, yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. Everyone knows who my sort of Rangers right back would be, but there's no doubt over his sort of exploits over the last couple of years. He thoroughly deserves to be in there, and as your right back. Who else were you considering for each of those roles, Craig?
Yeah, so right back, second was actually Alan Hutton. But he kind of had a good 6 months to a year, and then he went away. So didn't really feel it was enough of a sample size for him to be in the team. And then the third one was Fernando Rickson actually, but that was because his consistency of appearances over the time that I've sort of grown up watching Rangers. The one Fernando Rickson thing I always remember actually is a penalty at Tynecastle. I don't know why that's the one thing I remember about him, but it was to draw 2 each as well.
Oh, I remember. I do remember. Yeah.
But it's. But I just think he was so consistent, and so he was kind of in contention as well. But I don't think either of them really touched James Tavernier for me on that one. As I said, centre half I found actually one of the easier ones. Lorenzo was in contention there. I thought Connor Goldson was actually in contention there as well, which might be contentious to other people. But and David Weir was really close to being in there actually, just from a consistency perspective, and the way he led that defence from he joined us when he was 37, and for 3 seasons he was the most consistent guy you could possibly ask for. And the way he brought Danny Wilson through and that side of things, and it was just a model pro, and he was part of that defensive team that got us to the UEFA Cup final in 2008, and his performances at the age he was at that point against some top opposition were great. So he was really close. He was probably our third choice for centre half. So went for Gough and Moore, and then left back. The only other one in contention is Arthur Newman. For me, really, I think he was the only one that was potentially pushing Papach, and I've got really fond memories of him in the team. But I think for me, Papach gets in there ahead of him.
So I'll tell you just 2 names I want to throw into you before I write down your back 4. So we've got Tav, we've got Gough, we've got Moore, and we've got Sasa at left back. No mention in the centre half pairing. I love doing this because I've got I can work these out when you're chatting. No mention for Queller.
Yeah, I liked him, but I just don't think he was at that level to be above Gough or Moore. And he was good for us, but he doesn't reach that level for me.
Do you know someone else who I think we almost forget about as fans? And I think it was more because he left in a wee bit of acrimonious circumstances. I don't even know if I said that right. Boomsong.
Yeah, he wasn't around for long enough though, was he? Really?
No.
He was quality. He was good quality, and
he really was.
He obviously went to Newcastle for decent money as well at that point. But I don't think he was here long enough. I've actually ruled a few people out over the course of this because they weren't at Rangers long enough. I don't think.
Didn't they stick it?
And they moved on for different reasons. He moved on because he got a great offer from Graham Souness at Newcastle or whatever. But yeah, I didn't really come into the radar, to be honest, for me because of that reason.
Fair point. A good back line, I have to say. A lot of quality in there. Tav, you know what you're going to get from him as far as sort of bombing up and down the left-hand side, and Papach gives you great defensive quality in at left back as well. 2 guys in the middle speak for themselves. 4 across the centre of the pitch because you went for a good old-fashioned 4-4-2. It's Burnley we're watching. Give me your 4 across the centre, then right to left.
To be fair, I've not really gone for any big guys up front, so I'm not sure the Burnley tactics will work. But right midfield, I've gone Brian Laudrup, wide right. Barry Ferguson and Gaza in the central midfield. And then left wing, this is kind of an on the spot because it's 50-50, but I am going Peter Lovenkrands.
Peter Lovenkrands.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, go for it. Tell me why.
Right. So Laudrup, I don't even think I need to say much about Brian Laudrup as to why he's in there. He's one of the best I've ever seen. Even at the young age I was watching him, he's one of the best I've ever seen, and I don't really think there's been anyone really getting close to him in a Rangers jersey, if I'm being honest.
And you got him for a couple of years, didn't you?
Yeah. So 98 he left. Is that right?
Left.
So a couple of years of him, obviously the 9 in a row win and goal and everything as well. But I think actually looking at this, you actually realise how much we struggled for wide players over the years. For a long time, we've struggled for high quality wide players. You look at some of the names that have gone, like Nuno Capucho, you look at Lee Martin, you look at guys just guys that you're like, surely one of them's got to work, but it's so rare that we've found a winger that could actually do a great job. So Brian Laudrup's in there. We'll come back to who else was in consideration. Barry Ferguson, because he was the absolute hero of my time growing up with Rangers. He was the leader. He was the captain. Absolutely boss in midfield. Getting right stuck into Celtic every time he played them. You could see he hated them as much as I hated them.
Absolutely.
So, it was just like pure passion, and I think especially in that first spell, he was fantastic. But I loved him when he came back in the second spell as well, to be fair. Gaza, again, a bit like Laudrup, it was only a year and a half, 2 years I saw Gaza for. But again, it was so different to anything else that we had or that we've seen since. And he was streets ahead of anyone else in that league at that point. And it was just the goals that gave him his game against Aberdeen, for example. That was a couple of months after my first game, and stuff like that sticks in the memory. And you're I don't think there's any doubt for me that he should be in there. And then left wing, Peter Lovenkrands. So that was a bit of an on the spot one for me. He scored some of the most memorable goals I think that I've had during my time growing up, especially that Scottish Cup final one. He also scored one, or was it potentially two, against Porto in the Champions League at home. It might have been two. He definitely scored one. And it was I thought he was inconsistent with his ball into the box, but he was forever working hard, and he bought into the whole Rangers ideal side of things. I loved him. I don't know if it was just because he was rapid as well.
So it was really fast, wasn't he?
He was so quick. He was so quick, and I hadn't really seen anything like that playing for Rangers at that point. And it was something different. So Peter Lovenkrands in there.
I think Lovenkrands is a funny one. I think you would have seen him through the middle a lot more often if his finishing wasn't almost so erratic. I think and you find this way, quick footballers, they have their acceleration and their physical pace is like second to none, but their actual sort of mental sort of readiness, if you like, isn't quite there. You see that with a lot of players that are as fast, and Peter Lovenkrands was absolutely rapid, as you absolutely say.
I think he was one of these players that, and you've seen it a few times over the years. I think you see it sometimes with Morelos currently. You saw it like Nacho Novo constantly, Kenny Miller as well. See if they've got time to think. There's no chance he's finding the back of the net on a month of Sundays. But see if he does it as an instinct, you get a good shout. And I think he kind of falls into that category.
Alternatives for each of these positions. Now, there must be. I'm quite looking forward to what your alternatives were for left wing, to be honest.
For left wing, right? Okay, left wing, I only had one.
Okay, go for it.
So it was Neil McCann. It was the only one that I had. And it was probably actually, my uncle hated Neil McCann for some reason. I have no idea why my uncle hated Neil McCann, but my uncle hated Neil McCann. And that's probably why he's taken a wee bit of a step down in my books.
You're scarred by that.
It's 3 years, whatever it was, and my uncle just absolutely slating him time after time. I still don't remember why, but he was Neil McCann. Like I really like Neil McCann as a Rangers player. I thought his quality of crossing into the box was really good. He was small, but he was hardy.
Yeah.
So he was definitely in contention. But outside of that, I really struggled for a left winger. Hopefully you're going to throw a couple of names at me here.
No, I'm glad you mentioned McCann, because he was probably the one that I would have said, if I was your age, which I'm clearly not. He was probably the one that sort of jumps out. And I know that Tommy McIntyre, when he done his team, he had McCann as a sort of left-sided winger attacker. So I think McCann, Alberts could probably play in that position as well, but you're obviously not getting the same sort of movement up and down the wing. Although you are getting that absolute thunder bastard of a shot.
I do think though with Papach at left back, you needed someone that would take the ball and cross it in.
Correct.
So I've taken tactics. They'll just say I've taken tactics into
it. Absolutely.
But yeah, I think Neil McCann was really the only one that I could think of. See, to be fair, one I thought of that shocked me. I thought of, but I was like, actually, it was pretty good for us. Was DeMarcus Beasley?
It was a good player.
It was quality, but it just wasn't consistent enough.
Correct.
And I think he was a level below Livingston and McCann anyway.
Classic winger as well. You almost have that guarantee with a winger, that you're going to have periods of being pretty rotten. And I think with I would actually argue that McCann, I felt, was really quite consistent when he arrived from Hearts. I thought we almost always got good shifts out of him, but guys like Beasley, I think you're right. You did get a lot of sort of inconsistency from him, albeit he was a good player. You look at that night across in the Stade Gerland in Lyon, and he was excellent that night. So, but yes, in the first instance, I would agree, you did get inconsistency from him. So you've went for Barry Ferguson and Paul Gascoigne in the middle of the park, which I think is relatively self-explanatory. Your other alternatives in there were?
Stephen Davis was one. I think Stephen Davis is class. I think from his first spell up to now, he's just so cool. He's so calm. He's so precise, and he makes it look so easy as well. I think the only time where I've thought actually he's starting to struggle a wee bit was the start of last season, but he came into it a bit more. I don't know if that was just a fitness thing or whatever, but he came into it more, and I think him and Lundstrom took a wee bit of time to start working out how they play beside each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a text from I was texting my mate when I was looking at this, and he was like, "Surely John Lundstrom's in there after last season." But so John Lundstrom was not in consideration. A few more years of what he did second half of last season, then he might be up there. The only other one I really considered for there was George Alberts. I thought, like you say, I think he was absolutely loved him. Just his left foot and the way he could strike a ball was just incredible. Just incredible. I don't think I've ever seen anyone hit a football. It's Roberto Carlos, maybe. He just kind of.
Do you know? I think when you watched Roberto Carlos do it, he almost done it. He struck the ball hard with a bit of finesse. I always thought when you watched Alberts, particularly if he was having a free kick, he was hitting it with anger.
It was just everything he had was going into that football.
Absolutely, he was knocking fuck out the ball, and he was making sure he was going to score with it. You know what I mean? A huge. I mean, and I'm saying that as someone who doesn't really use their left foot at all, sometimes for standing on. Hugely admirable of Alberts. His left peg was like nothing I think we've seen for a long time.
Yeah, and I think midfield, you're looking at guys like Pedro Mendes potentially. Yep. You look at Lee McCulloch. He was kind of a utility man in the end, but he did really well for us. Kevin Thompson, did really well for us. I just don't think they quite reached the level that the four guys that I just spoke about reached, but all in contention and all. I thought they were all tremendous for Rangers.
Now, out of curiosity, and it's funny, but did you have a lot of options for right wing? We've obviously went for Laudrup in there. Now, I assume you're basically relying, if hypothetically we're seeing this team run out, the first thing you're saying to Brian Laudrup is, you've got a free role, big man, do as you please. it's ironic that one of the things I think we're looking at this summer from the club is that they bring in a decent supply from the right-hand side, a good right winger. Was there anyone else you were considering for that right-hand side role?
Yeah, so this guy almost beat Brian Laudrup. So Daniel Candeas.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm not joking. That's not.
Thank God for that.
No, you had no idea how to react to that.
I didn't know.
So the other two that I considered for right wing, Ronald de Boer was one.
Yeah.
I think whether he's a right winger, contentious, probably not, but he kind of
float. He could float in that role, couldn't he?
Yeah. But the third one was Kanchelskis.
I forget about him actually.
So I thought Kanchelskis was class. Probably he was on a holiday when he was here, really, wasn't he? But
yeah,
I thought he was class. You see the quality that he had. Absolutely loved the standing on the ball. That was right up my street as a 6 or 7 year old or whatever it was. So
he scored one of the best volleys I think I've ever seen as well. As a cracking volley across at, I'm sure it was East End Park it was. And we pumped Dunfermline that day. The score sort of escapes me, but I certainly remember Kanchelskis scored an absolutely wonderful right foot. Great technical ability. Do you know what I mean? I think it was like the classic guy who'd came from Europe to Britain, and he'd been just taught how to play the game that little bit differently and learned so well. Technically, he was on a different planet, I think.
Absolutely. Just going back to the midfield, actually, there were a couple under consideration, but I ruled out, say for the same reason as I ruled out Boomsong, really, to be fair. One of them's Gattuso, wasn't here for long enough.
Loved him.
I absolutely loved him, and he was a crazy guy and quality player, but wasn't here for long enough. Another one was Arteta. Obviously, he gave us that final day moment, and he was class while he was here, but again, wasn't here long enough. It's quite funny looking back, and he obviously went back because he was homesick and that kind of thing, and now he's just completely he's lived in England for most of his life after that. But
do you know, it's funny you mentioned Gattuso. One of the things that I've often thought about Rino Gattuso is that I wonder how the Rino Gattuso that ended his career at Milan would have fitted into the Rangers side of that. So if you remember right, when Gattuso was sort of starting out, Advocat was trying to use him as a right wing back and all that sort of stuff, and it certainly wasn't his game. When you saw him later in his career playing that sort of almost that enforcer role in the centre of the park, it makes you think him and Barry Ferguson in the middle of the park would have been incredible together, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. It's one of those ones where you see players go back to clubs they started with or they're at early in their career, and you think, what are you doing? Why are you doing that?
Exactly.
There's no reason. But that one, you'd have absolutely loved to see that. And the whole, all the drama around them and just everything off the park and his demeanour as well as on the park. I mean, there's not many guys that would score a goal. Joe Jordan is there, so
no, there is not. So across the middle, we've got Brian Laudrup, Barry Ferguson, Paul Gascoigne, and Peter Lovenkrands. Decent, I have to say. Laudrup doing as he pleases. Lovenkrands, I suspect, would be the same. So, unusually, you've went for two up top.
Yeah.
Now, I'm really interested to know who you pick here. I think I might know one of them.
Okay, right. So say who you think it is.
I think you'll pick Jelavic.
No, I didn't even make the shortlist.
Wow. Go for it. The floor is yours.
Right, so I've gone two up top, and you know how I said I thought about tactics earlier.
Yep. Yeah, you can't go with three up top. No chance.
No, I've not gone one big, one small. I've just gone pure goal scoring ability. So number one, Ali McCoist.
Yep.
Absolutely loved him. I could not love a man more than I love Ali McCoist.
Yeah.
Just everything about him. You see the goals he scores and how he just picked up positions. So I loved playing for Rangers so much. You could rely on him scoring goals just all the time. We've been crying out for something like that since. The only one that's got close to him who was also a potential but didn't make it is Chris Boyd, who kind of just, you knew he was scoring at least one, if not more, in a game, and he just sat in the penalty box and as crosses came in or balls fell to him, he was just in the right place at the right time, and he gave us so many moments of joy. Even me as a 4, 5, 6-year-old gave so much joy to me watching Rangers, and even watching Scotland. I'm a big Scotland fan. I know it's rare for Rangers fans to admit that, I'm a big Scotland fan, and even sort of that Euro '96 goal against Switzerland and stuff like that, just so much joy. And then even, and I suppose I might have I been influenced by his personality, and have I been influenced by how he is in the media and all that sort of stuff. And he's from East Kilbride, I'm from East Kilbride, and that sort of thing. So you know people that know him, and maybe a wee bit. But I think as a Rangers striker, you would never pick anyone else above him.
Do you know the thing about McCoist, and I love this about Ali McCoist, is that he strikes me as being your pal. Aye. And I'll explain that to you a wee bit. Where I sit right next to the director's box at Ibrox, and I remember once he came in, and the game had started, and he came in with, I'm sure it was his son he came in with, and he kind of had a pair of shades on and a hat. So he was obviously trying to sort of be a bit inconspicuous, get into his cheat, and then at the end he would disappear. However, someone clocked him, and as you can probably appreciate, everyone wants a picture or anything like that, and he never said no to anyone. So I think he spent about half an hour trying to get to his chair. Now his boy that he was with was away in and sitting down, and Ali was taking time out to speak to pictures. There was to speak to people looking for pictures. There were guys my age with their sons looking to get pictures taken, when probably what they're thinking is, I would love to get my picture taken with Ali McCoist, but they're saying to the wee boy, go and stand next to him and get your picture taken. You know what I mean?
But I think it's his sense of humour as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's just great. And you see him, even the way he's so passionate about Rangers still, and the way he defends the club, and he's kind of, you see other clubs have cheerleaders that just defend them no matter what, whereas he's a bit of a cheerleader for Rangers, but he'll criticise them when he criticised as well, and it's just you can tell he loves Rangers as much as you love Rangers or I love Rangers. And,
absolutely, and that, I think that's really And you know, it's that way as well. And I don't know if you feel like this, and it might have just been the climate at the time that we as fans found ourselves in, but there was never a Rangers manager that I wanted to succeed more than Ali McCoist. And I think that I'm certain he'll look back on it with disappointment, the way it kind of all went belly up for him. However, I don't think it'll ever sort of stain the reputation he has with the football club forever.
No, absolutely not. I was like you. I was absolutely desperate for him to succeed. And you see people criticise him to this day, and like one of the worst managers we've ever had. And I can never understand that mindset. I don't think he was for starters. I don't think he was anywhere near as bad as people made him out to be. He had pretty significant behind the scenes issues on the go at the time.
I'll say,
and he was dealing with all that, and he was the one consistent force, and he was coming out to speak to fans all the time in front of the media and all that sort of stuff. And I will never criticise Ali McCoist. That's potentially a blind spot for me, but I will never criticise Ali McCoist.
I think even that as an aside, I sometimes think it's easy to miss just how good a footballer Ali McCoist was as well. And that's part of the climate we find ourselves in currently, because we speak about how he's such a cheery guy and he's great in the media. We listen to him on the radio, we see him on the telly, and we think, oh, he's class. We really love him, you know what I mean? But he was a really good striker. Do you know what I mean? Ali McCoist was a fantastic striker for Rangers. And I doubt very, very, very much that in my lifetime, we'll ever see anyone like him again. Certainly never see anyone beat his record as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's just his movement, and even in his commentary these days, you can see he's shouting out Kamar Roof to get into this position, or he's saying all you have to do is take 2 steps that way, and you're like, the way he,
because that's what I would do.
The way he thinks about the game is still as though he's playing, and it gives you a bit of an insight into what his mindset was at that point. And then you actually, when you look back at a lot of the goals he scored, you can see that bit of movement that he's talking about, or you can see where the defenders haven't clocked it for a second, but he's thought about that step back towards the penalty spot, or he's thought about that 2 steps to the left in a split second, and he's done it, and it's more often than not it comes off.
Yeah, absolutely. He's better than a legend. I don't think there's a word created for McCoist yet. You know that? I genuinely don't. Craig, your second striker and someone to chum Ali up top.
Yeah, so like I said, I've just gone pure goals. So Michael Moles is the striker alongside him. We all know what he was like before his injury, and then how his injury changed him. But what he was like before his injury was just absolutely incredible. I think he was the best finisher outside of McCoist that I've seen at Ibrox. I don't think I've seen a better one. Chris Boyd scored a lot of goals, but I don't think he had that finishing, that ability quite to the level that Moles had. But obviously the injury was just catastrophic for him, and it was a shame how the rest of his Rangers career went, but that first period was just absolutely tremendous.
I think I genuinely think, and I think I've said this before in the pod, Moles is arguably one of the most technically gifted strikers we've ever had.
Yeah.
I think as a footballer and ability wise, he was just different class. I mean, he really was.
He did the same thing every time as well.
Yeah,
but the knew it was coming. But
no one could get near him. Yeah. How many times you tried the turn?
Yeah.
Have you tried the turn before? Yeah, aye.
As a left back, no.
Do you ever try it in fives or in the house yourself?
I think I would have tried it when I was younger, but I've not. It's not like I've got the balloon. It's not like I've got the balloon out and I'm trying to turn the TV or the dog or anything like that. So, but yeah, I think no, I've never really tried to turn that much, especially the way he got injured. So I was like, if he got injured that way, then. And
I think that night in Munich was an absolute shocker. We were excellent that night, I think, as everyone largely appreciates. And the injury was just an absolute shocker. It was a terrible moment, and at that part of the season as well, it was a real blow to suffer.
I think it was those Champions League nights that actually stick in my memory the most. I think when you look at Sturm Graz was one, PSV was another where he was absolutely top class. Munich, like you say, and then there was one. It was the season after that with Panathinaikos in the group stage of the season, and 2 seasons after that. He absolutely destroyed them at Ibrox. Every time he touched the ball, you thought it was going to be a goal. Scored a couple, and he was absolutely class. Yeah,
he was a different standard of the striker, I think, for Scottish football as well. I mean, they're not really bothered about that, but for ourselves, it was incredible to have him. So you're going for 2 up front, McCoist and Moles. Who else did you rule out?
So Chris Boyd was the closest to be in there, just from a pure goals return. Obviously had his issues trying to score against Celtic, which brings him down a wee bit. But against everyone else, you pay big money for a player like that just now. And I think we're just missing someone with that consistency against the World League teams, I guess. I guess we kind of hoped that Cedric Kitten would be it with his goal scoring exploits against Motherwell, but they just didn't have it. And I think we've really struggled to find someone like that since. But his just sort of pure goals alone, I think Chris Boyd was up there. Shota Arveladze,
good shout.
One considered. I thought I really like Shota Arveladze. I still really like him. Still keep an eye out for what he's doing and everything. Obviously, he's at Hull just now. But again, another really likeable striker, and scored big goals as well, which is part of what you have to do at Rangers. It's almost, being a striker at Rangers must be a bit weird, because it's almost like score against Livingston, score against Ross County, score against Dundee United. You're like, well. It's almost like anyone could do it. It's almost the attitude that you have as a Rangers fan, isn't it? It's almost like, I could have scored that one. So, but then it's scoring the ones in Europe, it's scoring the ones against Celtic, it's scoring the ones in cup finals. Those are the goals that you really remember. And so he scored some big goals for us. I absolutely adored Dado Purslow. Absolutely adored Dado Purslow. Just as a big, massive battering ram that was passionate as anything. He scored goals. He linked up well with Novo for that. There was a year where they had a tremendous year together. I can't remember. But they had a tremendous year together. And that one was actually the last one I got to sit beside my granddad for and stuff like that. So that one. I think that probably rose tinted spectacles kind of thing about Dado Purslow. But I absolutely loved him. And actually, Alfredo Morelos was up there as well.
So I was going to ask that. I wonder how we speak about McCoist, who is tier number 1. Moles is up there as well. I just wonder how closely you would rate Morelos to these guys.
Yeah, I think Morelos is you're probably putting him in line with Boyd almost, to be fair. But Morelos does score big goals. whereas Boyd potentially went missing in the bigger games. But
Yeah.
Morelos does score big goals, and he absolutely loves the Europa League. He absolutely loves playing in Europe. Maybe not quite consistent enough against your St Johnstones, Livingstones, etc.
Yeah.
Probably need him to be more consistent. But as a guy, I absolutely love him as well. Just his personality, his moody face, and all that. So he absolutely, like, you can't be angry at him for too long.
No, not at all.
But I think and he seems settled at Rangers as well, which I know he's going into his last year of his contract, but hopefully we sign him on for another one. And I think one of the biggest testaments to Alfredo Morelos and how well he does for Rangers is that I'd say 80% plus of Rangers fans would think that had Alfredo Morelos been fit in the Europa League final, we would have won it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And to be a player of that magnitude and to mean that much to a team and to have that ability within fans' mind that they will be able to make a difference in a game of that magnitude, just shows how quality Alfredo Morelos is. And I think once he leaves and once his Rangers career is done, I actually think he will go up to the Michael Moles level of admiration that I have for him, and I imagine a lot of other fans would have as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll give you two names that could probably have been involved as well. De Boer could probably have played in any one of those two roles. Yeah. But you obviously need you've went for goals, which I understand. And someone who I would love to have seen at Rangers earlier than when we did see him was Claudio Caniggia.
Yeah, I actually in my head I had him as a winger. I don't know why I had him as a winger, but he came to Rangers too late in his career. He was still class, and in fact he was at Dundee before he came to Rangers. Even in fact Dundee managed to sign him was just insane. But that was part of that whole. Was it
Benetti?
Benetti, I was going to call him.
Benetti was in there. Aye, and we had the madman Di Stefano was in there at some point as well. My goodness.
Yeah.
Some stories to be told there, I'm sure.
It was Caniggia, they had Ravanelli as well, didn't they? And then they had Novo and Caballero.
Caballero was there, yeah.
Caballero, aye. I don't know why I know so much about Dundee, but
I know that's a worry. Like
they just stuck out, but yeah, I think for me he came too late to the party on that one. I think if he'd arrived to us when he arrived at Dundee, I think he'd probably be up there with a shout.
Yeah, fair point. Okay, let's run through them. McGregor in goals, Tavernier at right back, Gough, Moore and Sasa Papaj at left. Across the centre of the park, you've got Laudrup in a free role alongside Barry Ferguson, Paul Gascoigne and Peter Lovenkrands down the left-hand side with Ali McCoist and Michael Moles up top. Last question is a really, really easy one. Who's your captain, Craig Dennett?
So I think that goes to Richard Gough. I think, is he going to be the captain of everyone's?
He might very well be. He might very well be. I think
he's just a leader, isn't he? He's a pure leader in every sense of the word. And I think when Rangers fans think a captain, they think of him and they think of Barry Ferguson. I think most in recent times anyway, that's the two that they think of. Yeah. I think, I don't know, I have a bit of a romantic notion that centre half should always be captain. I don't know where that comes from.
Because they can see the play.
Yeah. I don't know if but it seems to be like quite a common one as well in Scotland. I don't know if that's how it used to be, so that's how it should always be, kind of thing. But I quite like the centre half being the way a goalkeeper cannot be a captain.
No, at all.
And a striker cannot be a captain either. So
no.
You need someone at least centre half or centre midfield at a push. But centre half for me, and the one choice is Richard Gough.
Indeed, good man. Okay, Craig, listen, I've enjoyed your team. Thanks very much for coming on.
No, well, I'm interested to see how Peter Lovenkrands on the left wing goes down, to be honest.
Absolutely,
that may be a bit contentious.
So Andrew Anderson's next. We'll need to line him up. Don't forget to check us out on our YouTube channel. Retweet us on Twitter, like and subscribe us on the channel as well. Set your toggle to on, which means that every time we release anything, you will get notification of it. And you can check us out, of course, on the live pods each and every Sunday moving forward. Plus, something very exciting coming from the start of pre-season, starting the 27th of June, which we're looking forward to. Thanks for your time, Craig. Thanks again, buddy. Well done.
I appreciate it. That was good fun.
And we will do it all again next time with Andrew. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.